The silver Bentley glides through the rain-soaked streets of downtown Chicago as 75-year-old Robert Beaumont adjusts his Italian silk tie. The leather seats embrace him like a cocoon of privilege, separating him from the harsh reality just beyond the tinted windows. But what happened next shocked everyone, because in 30 seconds, this billionaire's entire world would come crashing down when he spotted something that would haunt him forever. The brake lights cast an eerie red glow across the wet pavement as Robert's driver suddenly stops. There, huddled against the cold brick wall of an abandoned storefront, are two small figures wrapped in a threadbare blanket. 8-year-old Isaiah Thompson clutches his 4-year-old sister Lily tighter as another gust of wind whips through the narrow alley. Her tiny body shivers uncontrollably, and Isaiah whispers, "It's okay, Lily. Tomorrow will be better. I promise." Robert's breath fogs the window as he leans forward, his heart hammering against his ribs. In his 75 years of life, through decades of board meetings and charity galas, he has never seen anything so heartbreaking. These aren't just homeless children, they're babies, abandoned by a system that should protect them. "Sir, shall we continue?" his driver asks, but Robert can't form words. His mind races back to his own childhood, growing up in the very neighborhoods he now drives through in luxury vehicles. Little did Robert know that this moment would force him to confront everything he'd tried to forget about his own past. The rain begins to fall harder, and Isaiah desperately tries to shield Lily from the drops seeping through their makeshift shelter. Her small voice cuts through the storm, "Isaiah, I'm hungry. When can we go home?" The 8-year-old's face crumbles for just a moment before he composes himself. "Soon, baby girl. Real soon." Robert watches this exchange, and something deep inside his chest breaks open. This isn't just about two children on the street, this is about a little boy forced to be a man, carrying responsibilities no child should ever bear. The billionaire thinks of his own estranged daughter Emily, how he failed her when she needed him most, always choosing business over family. "Stop the car," Robert commands, his voice barely a whisper. "Stop the car right now." As his driver pulls to the curb, Robert's hands shake as he reaches for the door handle. He's attended $1,000-a-plate dinners to help the homeless, but he's never actually looked into the eyes of a child with nowhere to go. But the real shock was still coming, because what Robert was about to discover about these children would challenge everything he believed about family, responsibility, and redemption. Isaiah notices the expensive car and instinctively pulls Lily closer, his young eyes scanning for danger. He's learned that in their world, attention from strangers usually means trouble. "Stay quiet," he whispers to his sister, who has fallen into an exhausted sleep against his shoulder. Robert steps out of the Bentley, his custom leather shoes splashing in a puddle. The contrast is jarring, his $1,000 suit against the backdrop of urban decay, his manicured hands that have never known real hardship reaching toward children who know nothing but struggle. The rain soaks through his jacket, but for the first time in decades, he doesn't care about his appearance. This decision would change everything, not just for Isaiah and Lily, but for Robert himself. As he approaches the children, memories flood back of his own father walking out when Robert was barely older than Isaiah. The cycle of abandonment that he swore he'd break, but somehow perpetuated with his own daughter. Isaiah's eyes snap open as Robert's shadow falls across their shelter. The boy's protective instincts kick in immediately, his small frame tensing as he prepares to run if necessary. But something in the old man's eyes stops him, a recognition of pain that mirrors his own. Robert's voice cracks as he speaks his first words, "Son, what are you doing out here?" Robert's hand trembles slightly as it hovers over Isaiah's shoulder. The boy looks so small, so vulnerable in the harsh glow of the streetlight. Taking a deep breath, Robert gently taps the child's arm. Isaiah's eyes snap open instantly, alert and wary. In one swift motion, he shifts to shield his sleeping sister, his young face hardening with a maturity no 8-year-old should possess. "Stay back," he whispers fiercely, though his voice wavers. "We're not doing anything wrong." "Easy there, son," Robert says softly, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I'm not here to hurt you. I saw you both out here and I'm worried. It's getting colder." Isaiah studies the old man's face, noting the expensive coat, the genuine concern in his weathered features. Something about Robert's gentle tone makes the boy's defensive posture relax slightly, though he remains protective of Lily. "We're fine, mister. We don't need any trouble." "What's your name?" Robert asks, slowly crouching down to the boy's eye level. "Isaiah," the boy responds after a moment's hesitation. "This is my sister Lily. She's only 5. Robert's heart breaks a little more as he takes in their situation. The cardboard beneath them is damp from the evening dew, and he can see Isaiah's thin jacket is nowhere near warm enough for Chicago's unforgiving autumn nights. "Isaiah, that's a strong name. How long have you two been out here?" The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Isaiah's jaw tightens as he considers whether to trust this stranger. Finally, his shoulders sag with exhaustion that goes beyond physical tiredness. 3 weeks, he admits quietly. "Ever since we lost our apartment." The words hit Robert like a physical blow. 3 weeks. These children have been surviving on the streets for 3 weeks. What happened to your home? Isaiah's eyes grow distant, but the story comes tumbling out as if he's been holding it in too long. Mama got sick. Real sick. She couldn't work as much, and then she couldn't work at all. The medicine costs so much money, and the rent kept going up and up. Mama tried everything, but... His voice breaks slightly. She had to choose between keeping us housed or getting her treatment. Robert feels his throat constrict. The stark reality of the situation crystallizes before him. This isn't about lazy parents or poor choices. This is about a healthcare system that forces impossible decisions, about housing costs that spiral beyond reach, about children paying the price for adult failures. "Where's your mother now?" Robert asks gently. "She's in the hospital. The county won. She made us promise to stay together, to take care of each other until she gets better." Isaiah's voice drops to barely a whisper. "But I don't know if she's gonna get better, mister. I don't know what we're supposed to do." The vulnerability in those words shatters something inside Robert. Here's this boy, barely past childhood himself, carrying the weight of the world on his narrow shoulders. Meanwhile, Robert has 3 empty bedrooms in his Gold Coast mansion, investments worth more than most people see in a lifetime, and he's been worried about whether his housekeeper folded his shirts correctly. The contrast feels obscene. Robert glances at his Bentley parked at the curb, then back at these children who've been making cardboard their bed. His comfortable distance from the world's problems suddenly feels like a chasm he's dug himself. How many nights has he driven past people exactly like Isaiah and Lily, safely insulated behind tinted windows and classical music? "Isaiah," Robert says carefully, "I have a big house not far from here. It's warm, and there's food. Would you let me take you and Lily somewhere safe tonight?" The boy's eyes narrow with suspicion, and Robert can practically see the internal war playing out. Trust versus survival, hope versus bitter experience. Isaiah has learned too young that the world isn't kind to children like him, that promises from strangers often come with hidden costs. But what choice does he have? Lily stirs in her sleep, shivering despite being pressed against her brother's warmth. Winter is coming to Chicago, and cardboard won't protect them from what's ahead. Robert waits, understanding that this moment will define not just tonight, but possibly the rest of all their lives. The decision hangs between them like a bridge neither is sure they can cross. Finally, Isaiah looks down at his sleeping sister, then back up at Robert's patient face. His young features are etched with fear, hope, and desperate calculation as he weighs their impossible options. The luxury sedan glides through the Chicago night as Isaiah clutches Lily's small hand, both children pressed against the leather seats that probably cost more than their family ever spent on furniture. Robert glances in the rearview mirror, watching Isaiah's protective posture, the way the boy's eyes dart between his sleeping sister and the unfamiliar streets rushing past. "You sure about this, mister?" Isaiah's voice cuts through the silence, barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of someone who's learned to question every kindness. "I'm sure," Robert replies, though his own hands tremble slightly on the steering wheel. When was the last time he'd brought anyone home? When was the last time his mansion held children's laughter? The wrought iron gates of the Beaumont estate swing open automatically, and Isaiah's breath catches audibly. The sprawling Georgian mansion sits like a monument to wealth, its windows glowing warmly against manicured lawns that stretch further than most city blocks. "You live here?" "Just you?" "Just me," Robert confirms, parking in the circular driveway. "Well, mostly." Inside the marble foyer, Lily awakens and gasps at the crystal chandelier hanging overhead like captured starlight. Her small fingers reach toward it instinctively before Isaiah gently pulls her hand back. "It's okay," Robert says softly. "Everything here is meant to be appreciated." But even as he speaks those words, Robert's gaze falls on the family portraits lining the grand staircase. His late wife Catherine smiles eternally from oil paintings, and there's Emily at various ages, gap-toothed at 7, serious in her graduation cap, distant in more recent photos where her eyes carry the same wariness he now sees in Isaiah. "Mr. Beaumont?" Isaiah's voice snaps him back. "You got family in all these pictures." "I did," Robert says, his voice catching. "I do." The sound of heels clicking against marble announces her arrival before she appears. Emily Beaumont strides into the foyer with the confidence of someone who inherited more than money. She inherited expectations and disappointments in equal measure. "Dad." Her greeting is crisp, professional. Then her eyes find Isaiah and Lily, and her expression shifts to something Robert can't quite read. And who might these be? Here's where the tension Robert had been avoiding finally surfaces. Emily's designer suit and perfectly styled hair speak of board meetings and charitable galas, not street children needing shelter. But there's something else in her expression, not judgment, but concern that cuts deeper. "This is Isaiah and Lily," Robert says carefully. "They're staying with us tonight." Emily's laugh is sharp, practiced. "Staying with us? Dad, what exactly do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea who these children are? Where they've been?" Isaiah stiffens beside him, and Robert sees the boy's walls going back up, the defensive posture returning. "We can go," Isaiah says quickly. "We don't need to stay nowhere we ain't wanted." "No," Robert says firmly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "You're wanted here." "By whom?" Emily demands. "Dad, you can't just collect strays because you're feeling guilty about something. This isn't how real help works." The word strays hangs in the air like a slap, and Robert watches Isaiah's jaw clench. But there's something else happening here. Emily's anger isn't really about the children. It's about him, about years of absence disguised as business trips, about birthday parties he missed for board meetings, about a daughter who learned to navigate the world without her father's guidance. "Maybe we should talk about this privately," Robert suggests, but Emily shakes her head. "No, Dad. If you're going to make decisions that affect everyone in this house, then everyone deserves to know what they're walking into." She turns to Isaiah, her voice softening slightly. "How old are you, sweetheart?" 8, Isaiah answers warily. "And Lily's 5. Emily kneels to Lily's level, her corporate mask slipping for just a moment. "Where are your parents?" The question Robert hadn't been brave enough to ask sends a visible tremor through both children. Isaiah's protective instincts kick in immediately. "Our mama's in the hospital," he says. "She can't work no more, and we lost our place. But we're gonna be okay. We always figure it out." The silence that follows is deafening. Emily's face goes through a series of expressions: surprise, pain, recognition. When she looks up at Robert, he sees his own shock reflected in her eyes. "The hospital," Emily repeats slowly. "What hospital?" And suddenly Robert understands why this moment feels so familiar, why these children have shaken something loose inside him. It's the same helplessness he felt 40 years ago, watching his own wife slip away in sterile hospital rooms while their daughter learned to be strong too young. "St. Mary's," Isaiah answers. "But the doctors say she might not. They say we should be ready for." His voice trails off, the burden of adult realities too heavy for 8-year-old words. Emily stands abruptly, her professional composure cracking. "Dad, we need to talk. Now." But her voice wavers with something Robert hasn't heard from her in years: vulnerability. As footsteps echo toward Robert's study, Isaiah tugs on his sleeve. "Mister, your daughter don't like us being here. We really can go." Robert looks down at this child who's been forced to become a man too soon, protecting his sister while carrying impossible weight. Then he looks at Emily's retreating figure, recognizing the same protective stance he watched her develop when her mother got sick, when he threw himself into work rather than face the helplessness of watching someone you love slip away. "Son," Robert says quietly, "sometimes the people who push back the hardest are the ones who understand exactly what you're going through." From his study comes the sound of Emily's voice, raised and breaking with emotion he hasn't heard from her since Catherine's funeral. "Do you have any idea what you've done, bringing them here? Do you have any idea what this is going to cost us all?" The confrontation between Robert and Emily erupts like a dam finally bursting. Emily's voice cuts through the elegant dining room with years of pent-up frustration. "You want to know why I don't trust this, Dad? Because where were you when I needed a father figure? When Mom was dying and I was begging you to just be present?" Her hands shake as she grips the mahogany table. "Now suddenly you're the savior for two kids you just met?" Robert's face crumbles. The weight of decades crashes down on his shoulders as he stares at his daughter across the polished surface that might as well be an ocean. "Emily, I know I failed you. I buried myself in work, in deals, in everything except what mattered most." What neither of them realizes is that Isaiah stands frozen in the hallway, clutching Lily's hand. He's heard every word, and something shifts in his 8-year-old understanding of the world. This rich man isn't perfect either. He's broken, just like everyone else. The news playing softly in the background catches all their attention. A reporter's voice drifts through the tension. Chicago's housing crisis has reached a breaking point. Mayor Johnson announced today that rent stabilization efforts have stalled in city council, leaving thousands of families at risk of displacement. Isaiah's grip tightens on Lily's hand. Other kids like them are out there right now, sleeping on cold concrete, wondering where their next meal will come from. The reality hits him harder than the Chicago wind ever could. Emily's anger transforms into something deeper as she watches her father's face. "You know what the worst part is, Dad? I've been running community outreach programs for 3 years. 3 years of trying to help families exactly like Isaiah and Lily's. And you never once asked about it." But wait, there's something in Emily's tone that makes Robert look up sharply. The accusation carries an unexpected weight. "I've seen hundreds of kids come through our doors," Emily continues, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Kids whose parents work 3 jobs and still can't make rent. Kids who haven't eaten in days but still show up to school because it's the only one place they know." Isaiah steps forward, no longer hiding. "My mama worked at the diner every day, even when she got sick. She never wanted us to see how scared she was." His young voice carries wisdom far beyond his years. Maybe Mr. Robert is scared too. The room falls silent except for the distant hum of the city below. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they can see Chicago's lights twinkling like fallen stars, each one representing lives touched by the same struggles that brought them all together. Emily stares at her father with new eyes. She sees not the absent businessman who missed her recitals and graduation, but a man wrestling with regret so heavy it's bent his shoulders. "Dad, what if we could actually make a difference together? What if this isn't just about Isaiah and Lily, but about everyone like them?" Robert's hands tremble slightly as he processes what his daughter is suggesting. The possibility of redemption, of turning his resources towards something meaningful, hangs in the air like a prayer waiting to be answered. But then Emily drops the revelation that changes everything. "There's something else you need to know, Dad. The community center I run? It's 3 blocks from where you found Isaiah and Lily. 3 blocks. And tomorrow, the city is voting on whether to shut us down for a luxury development project." The implications hit Robert like a physical blow. While he's been living in his ivory tower, his daughter has been fighting on the front lines of the very crisis that put Isaiah and Lily on the streets. And now, at the moment when they might finally bridge their divide, everything she's worked for hangs in the balance. Robert's mind races, contemplating the weight of this revelation against his newfound resolve and lingering doubt about whether he can truly make amends for a lifetime of distance. Emily's revelation hangs heavy in the air. She's been secretly funding community housing initiatives for months, using her trust fund to help families exactly like Isaiah and Lily's. "I didn't know how to tell you, Dad," she says, tears streaming down her face. "I thought you'd see it as throwing money away, just like you always said about Mom's charity work." Robert stands frozen, the weight of decades crashing down on him. His late wife's passionate pleas to help others, dismissed as naive idealism. His daughter's desperate attempts to connect, rebuffed by his focus on business. And now, 2 children sleeping on cold concrete have shattered the walls he built around his heart. "I was wrong," Robert whispers, his voice cracking. "About everything. About your mother, about you, about what really matters." He looks toward the guest room where Isaiah and Lily sleep peacefully. "These children, they've shown me who I used to be before I forgot how to see people instead of problems." The next morning brings chaos. Emergency city council meetings flood the news as Chicago announces emergency rent control measures, but landlords are retaliating by evicting tenants en masse. Hundreds of families face immediate homelessness. Emily's phone buzzes incessantly with calls from desperate community leaders. Isaiah appears in the doorway, having overheard everything. At 8 years old, he speaks with the wisdom of someone who's seen too much. "Mr. Robert, you helped us, but there are more kids like me and Lily out there tonight. My friend Marcus from school, his family got kicked out yesterday." Something ignites in Robert's eyes. He strides to his study, pulling out his phone with decisive energy. "Emily, I need the contacts for your housing initiative. All of them." His fingers fly across his tablet, accessing bank accounts that have sat dormant for philanthropy. "Isaiah, you know which families need help most?" What follows is a whirlwind 48 hours that transforms not just lives, but an entire community. Robert leverages his network of wealthy contacts, his business relationships, his political connections, all weaponized for good. He purchases 3 abandoned apartment buildings, funding their immediate renovation. Emily's grassroots knowledge combines with her father's resources to create something unprecedented. The climactic moment arrives during an emergency community meeting at a local church. Families crowd into folding chairs, children clinging to overwhelmed parents, everyone bracing for more bad news. Instead, Robert Beaumont, a man who hasn't set foot in a community gathering in 30 years, takes the microphone. "My name is Robert Beaumont," he begins, his voice steady but emotional. 2 weeks ago, I thought I knew what mattered. Then I met Isaiah and Lily Thompson, sleeping on the street 3 blocks from my mansion. They didn't just need shelter, they needed someone to see them as human beings worthy of dignity and love. He gestures to Emily, who stands beside him beaming with pride. "My daughter has been fighting this fight longer than I knew, with courage I never recognized." Together, we're announcing the Beaumont-Thompson Community Housing Initiative. The crowd erupts as details unfold. Immediately available apartments for displaced families. Job placement programs. Educational support. Medical care. But most importantly, a promise that no child in their community will sleep on the streets. Isaiah steps forward, Lily's tiny hand in his. "When I was scared and protecting my sister, I never thought anyone would really see us," he says into the microphone, his young voice carrying incredible strength. "Mr. Robert didn't just see us, he saw all of us. Sometimes the help you need comes from where you least expect it." 6 months later, Robert stands in the courtyard of the renovated Beaumont-Thompson Community Center. Children's laughter echoes off the walls as Isaiah teaches other kids to read in the corner, Lily curled up beside him with her favorite book. Emily coordinates volunteer schedules with the energy of someone finally aligned with her purpose. "You know what I learned?" Robert says, addressing the camera directly. "I spent 75 years accumulating wealth and building walls. It took an 8-year-old boy and his brave little sister to teach me that true richness comes from the connections we make in the lives we touch." He pauses, looking around at the bustling community center. Isaiah and Lily weren't just sleeping on that street, they were waiting for someone to remember that we're all connected, that someone else's struggle is our responsibility too. The camera captures one final shot, Isaiah running up to Robert with a drawing he's made, stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, with our family written in careful crayon letters across the top. Every day, someone needs help. Every day, someone has the power to provide it. The question isn't whether you'll encounter someone who needs you, Robert says, his arm around both children. The question is whether you'll stop long enough to see them. This is the power of unexpected human connections. They don't just change individual lives, they transform entire communities, one act of courage and compassion at a time.